Okay, welcome back to the Arch Advocate podcast. Thank you again so much for joining. And today we have a very special guest. He is the vice president of the South Sound Proud Boys. And he joins us today. His name is Aaron Williamson, and I'm very excited about this interview. And Aaron, you know what? Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's important.
Hey, listen, I want you to do most of the heavy lifting on this interview, but just to kind of set the tone. Years ago, just a couple of years ago, I had heard a vicious rumor that the Christian nations were shirking their responsibility to international law as it applied to the treatment of refugees and people who rightfully had refugee status. And I thought to myself, well, this will not do. And being the kind of man that I am, I bought a plane ticket, a GoPro, and some recording, other recording equipment. And I flew off to London. I went down to Calais, France, which is right on the water between England and France, to their biggest refugee camp there, commonly referred to as the jungle. I had to see it for myself, basically. And what I found was, there was a whole bunch of BS being thrown around, and there were no refugees. But there were certainly 10,000 migrants of fighting capability and age. And boy, that really got me thinking. Anyways, when I look at what's going on in Portland, as we've all seen in news snippets on Facebook and Twitter, and not so much on the news, conspicuously enough, something stinks. I feel like I'm not being told the whole story, so I'm going to allow you to enlighten me, sir. What the hell is going on in the Pacific Northwest?
Man, that's a good question. Pacific Northwest is, in a nutshell, you have your major cities.
Right.
Your major cities are filled with liberals, but
right.
They're not your typical classical liberal. They're not your typical just standard liberal. They're your communist liberal.
Right.
They're the ones that they want to, they're pro-Stalin. They're just pro-communism in general, man. They want to. They talk about a socialist society, but in the end, they want the government to have full reign. Now, outside of the big major cities, you have more conservatives out there. But the problem is that these, this is rural. A city is compacted with people, and then outside of the city, everybody's, pretty centralized when it comes to beliefs and thoughts.
I've made that observation before. Is like you get outside of Portland, Seattle, these towns out there, even Sacramento, even. You get outside of those towns and it's all just lumberjacks and fishermen and mill workers and hardy, salt of the earth kind of folk. People that are responsible for supplying said liberal cities with the with the lumber and food and water that they need. But one more alarming thing that amongst other things is recently we saw. The mayor of Portland came out and said, I didn't have any idea that the police had decided to stand down and allow a known terrorist organization work in the stead of the police department as it applies to directing traffic and brandishing weapons. Now, as you guys know, I am a word snob. What that word brandishing actually means it means a weapon that is out of its holster or container and at the ready for use. That's what brandishing is, and it is a felony. And we saw that happening in Portland. And the mayor said, "Oh, I don't know what's going on here, folks." Now, can you give us a little bit of? Is there anything? What can you tell us about that?
Well, wait, on sense, are you talking about the incident where he came out talking, saying that there were snipers on rooftops?
I was not aware that claim had been made. Please dive into that.
Okay, so Proud Boys run security for Patriot Prayer.
Right.
which is a group that goes through Portland, and they hold rallies and everything else. And we're, as a Proud Boy, especially in the Pacific Northwest, and mostly around through the country too, we do a lot of charity work, but at the same time, we do a lot of security work. And we put ourselves in between the innocent and in between the radicals.
Okay.
So, for instance, you have conservatives out there that want to peacefully protest. Then you have Antifa out there. And what does Antifa like to do? They like to get violent. What we do is we put ourselves in between them. So nobody, women, children, elderly don't get hurt. So what happened was there were some Patriot Prayer people there. They decided to park in a parking garage with a bunch of Portland Police Department, right? A bunch of Portland PD was in this parking garage. They felt like it'd be okay. Few people had their concealed weapons permits and everything else, so they had their weapons on them. Apparently there was a rifle in one of the vehicles or whatever, but it was unloaded. On top of being unloaded, it was stored properly, ammunition as far away from the rifle as can be. And so, the police reported on that, but nobody got arrested, no weapons were seized, nothing like that. All the Portland PD told them was, hey, keep your weapons inside the car, don't go to the protest in the park with them. Okay, reasonable enough.
Right.
They did that. So then what Ted Wheeler and 4 other police, like sergeants...
now, Ted Wheeler, for the listener, is the mayor of Portland, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So he went out on a press conference saying that there were snipers posted up on rooftops, and they found a cache of weapons amongst these individuals, and they made it seem like this crazy thing.
Right.
Like we had like a huge conspiracy, right?
Right.
And that was false. And then what happened was the leader of Patriot Prayer, Joey Gibson, who was running for Senate in Washington State, by the way.
Okay. Joey Gibson.
He came out and he was like, "No, that's not true," and he gave the full truth. Well, then all of a sudden, Ted Wheeler came out, and then they completely redacted the whole entire thing. They're like, "Well, it wasn't that bad, or it wasn't," you know what I mean? And what he's trying to do is he's trying to put the people in a mass scare.
Yes.
He's trying to put fear into the people of conservatives. And if anybody knows about gun safety and everything else, it's conservatives, especially people that have a concealed permit.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know anybody that has their concealed license that just go around brandishing weapons or stuff like that. That doesn't happen. Most gun owners are very responsible,
yeah.
Especially people that hold their CPO. Like, for instance, I'm a CPO holder. You will never, even in any time, you have to always make that distinction of what is a true threat that is going to harm your life and what is something you can get away from.
Right.
I think people tend to see, they hear gun and then they freak out, which isn't the case. And like another thing that they don't talk about is Antifa carries weapons too.
We've seen it.
Antifa always, they carry guns. That's not hidden. They carry asps. I don't know if you saw the footage from the June 30th rally. It's called the Great Battle of Portland, when us Proud Boys got pretty much sideswiped by Antifa in a streetway. I got hit across the face with an asp, metal baton, knocked me out for 30 seconds, man.
What does ASP stand for?
I can't remember. I just know it's a collapsible baton.
The collapsible baton, yeah, which are where I'm from, the state of California, that they're illegal. There is no permit for that. There's no, you know what I mean. So I don't know what the rules are in the state of Oregon, but
you're breaking up.
I was saying a collapsible baton in the state of California, where I'm from, there is no set of circumstances outside of being a police officer where carrying one of those is legal. It's a deadly weapon, and you can't have it. And so, when people hear like, "Oh, well, it was just a baton," it's like, "Oh, no. It's a baton that's meant for killing people, and that's what it's for."
Oh yeah, you can definitely get very hurt from it.
Well, yeah, because one thing, in this generation that we're in right now, we've been watching movies now for decades, and in the movies when Patrick Swayze fights the guy at the Roadhouse and gets hit in the head with a baseball bat and he keeps fighting, it's like, dude, that's not how it actually works in real life. When you get hit in the head with a baseball bat, you die from brain swelling, and it's awful. And like when people are walking around with batons, it's like that's intent. Like that person has something on their mind. But the thing is, and I wanted to touch on this, and I made this observation the other day, as just as a Marine and as a guy who enjoys studying, just the history of war and strategies and that sort of thing. It's like, okay, well, number one, Ted Wheeler's the mayor. He is in charge of the police department. That's in the purview of a mayorship. And for a mayor to not know what his chief of police is doing is like, well, number one, that's a bill of goods. I don't buy it. Perhaps it's the truth, but I don't buy it, right? But furthermore, it's from a strategic point, right? Like if I wanted to, if I was on their side, if I was the devil, then what I would do is I would give somebody the catalyst, give somebody the reason to draw their weapon and fire. Like that very old man who was in that car that was getting hit by a baton, by an Antifa guy. It's like if that guy was armed, he would have been justified in executing that guy. He would have gone to court and he would have won. And that's what they're looking for is some sort of footage, some sort of documentation. Like, look at these right-wing radicals just murdering people in the streets for using their First Amendment right. And it's like strategically, it looks like they're trying to goad people into drawing more blood. And what are your? I mean, and I'm sorry for talking so much. Again, like I want you to help us out here. But like when you're talking with your brothers, like what's being said? What are you guys discussing? What like how are you guys looking at what's happening here?
So first off, I usually always give a speech before we do a major rally. Always.
Okay.
There's a few other dudes that do. One of the things that we focus on as a Proud Boys and as doing security is we don't have any weapons.
Okay.
We're weaponless. In the eyes of the public, if you have weapons, you're inciting violence.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah,
now,
if you're in the public.
Obviously, you see Antifa has weapons. Like for instance, June 30th. They had asps. They had wooden poles that they had with flags that like to beat people across the head with.
I saw that.
They were throwing IEDs. So it would look like they took mortars from firework tubes and stuff like that. They took those mortars, they rewrapped them, put shrapnel in them, and was throwing them in the middle of our crowd. Which actually that was one of the things that incited the violence. On top of that, they throw fecal matter, urine on you. They throw glass bottles. They throw bricks. They throw big rocks. I mean, they're the ones that sit there and instigate the violence. And like I said before, we're the ones that stand in between the innocent.
Right.
We're the ones that take the hits. We don't carry weapons. We use our hands. And don't get me wrong, we don't ever entice the violence. We believe in 100% defending ourselves. And that's the thing. I think everybody around the nation, when the media sits there and tries to say that we were the ones inciting violence and they call us far right and all this other stuff, it's like they just lies and lies and lies because we're not far right. If anything, we're very centralized.
There was that news article that I just saw today. I'm pulling it up right now, and it's a picture of a gigantic hillbilly with a big hillbilly beard, and he's wearing hillbilly overalls. He's a big fella. He's got a big Proud Boy tattoo on his forearm, so he looks like your typical white supremacist. And it says, a second member of the alt-right hate group Proud Boys was busted by the New York Police Department for a brawl with Antifa. And directly underneath his very racist-looking, picture of him in his day in court is a picture underneath him of his very black wife and his two lovely, mixed children, smiling at a birthday party, wearing silly hats, and that whole thing. And so there is that. That's what I'm saying. Like when I went to Calais and I saw what was actually happening, I'm like, well, wait a minute. This isn't like it's weird. It's almost as if there's two sides to every story, and that's what we are seeing. Is even me, it's like, listen, I'm in the Macedonian Alps. All the information I get, even though I get it from trusted sources, it's like, yeah, still this is one-sided information. I have no idea what's really going on. So that's, to further my point, it's like I'm glad to have you on so that my listeners and me can hear, like, okay, well, what's really the deal? And so how do you guys, when you meet up before you get out there and do your work, and and give your pre-event speech and all that sort of thing, like, what is it that you guys are talking? How is it that you prepare your mind to deal with the idea of being attacked, and at the same time, like, keeping yourself reserved from rightfully striking back?
Well, I mean, usually before we go to a big rally, big group of us together, just so it's well known, we have a lot of Christians in our group, but we have a lot of atheists too, and we have a lot of people of all different types of religions, all different types of races, colors, creeds, everything. But what's funny is, and I've always noticed this, is like before we go in, we always say a big prayer. Big group of us say a big prayer. You know what? Everybody's bowing on their heads.
Right.
No matter what. It's one thing that, like you say, you're talking about that guy, and he has, his black wife and everything, to me, it goes, how can you sit there and say that man is a racist?
Right.
When obviously he doesn't see in black and white, the man sees in color, just, it's one of those things that, everybody wants we have all different types of colors of people in our group, and the fact that I can be standing right next to one of my boys that is a 6'6", 350-pound Samoan,
right,
and hear somebody call him a white supremacist. Right. What's really crazy is they just try to demonize anybody that just thinks differently than them, and honestly, it's scary. So like what you're asking about how we prep, one of the things I tell them, you're going to be called a white supremacist. You're going to be called a racist. You're going to be called the worst things in the books. For God's sakes, the guys on our side, the conservative black men and conservative Mexicans and conservative Samoans, and everybody, all different colors other than white, they get hit the worst, man.
Yeah.
They get called, Uncle Toms, tokens. They get told that they turn their back on their own race and everything else just because they believe in freedom.
Right.
They believe in a different political aspect than what they believe in, the opposing force, and it's sickening, man.
Well,
it turns your stomach because you have these guys sometimes go in there and it's just like, I'm not racist, I'm not any of these things, and they come out and they see how evil the other side is.
Yeah.
And when the left shows their colors for that, it's something else, man. And I tell people, what's that?
Oh no, please continue. I'm sorry.
I tell people, I go, until you've been to a rally, and especially Portland, man. Don't get me wrong. Seattle can be pretty crazy. Olympia can be pretty crazy, but Portland, man, that is like the hub. That is like the epicenter of just the BS, man. It is. And you see all these people thinking to me it's weird. You have our side, which we're trying to stand up just for people, freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, stuff like that, our constitutional rights. And then you have an opposing force, and of course you think you're doing good, which I know we're doing good, but you have the opposing force, which they're so self-righteous, they think they're actually doing good. But really what they're doing is they're defeating the whole purpose of freedom.
Right.
They're defeating your First Amendment right. They're defeating your Second Amendment right. And they know that too. That's another sickening thing. They know that, they call us fascists. Probably 15th, 16th of them don't even know what the definition of a fascist is.
No.
But they like to call you a fascist
right.
because you believe an opposite of them. And then you go, well, how am I a fascist when I believe you should be able to say whatever you want, and you're over here trying to tell me that hate speech is not free speech. You know, as a Proud Boy and as an American, you have to always realize, like, Voltaire.
Break it down, some Voltaire. Here we go.
I might not agree with what you say, but I'll defend your right for you to say it. I'll fight to the death for you to say it. And I'm a firm believer in that. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, man. Voltaire, he was the one that really helped our First Amendment right. But at the same time, I don't know if you know this or not, Voltaire was anti-Christian. You know what I mean? But Thomas Jefferson, being a Christian, still took his views and his thoughts, and he's implemented that into our Bill of Rights. You know, and I think a lot of people don't realize that when we were under the siege of Britain, we didn't have the right to say whatever we wanted. We didn't have the freedom to protest. I mean, for God's sakes, how many people know that the First Amendment actually has 5 rights in it?
Right.
You know, I mean, look at the Second Amendment. Second Amendment isn't the right just to own a gun. You know, it's the right to form, the right to bear arms. What is the meaning to right to bear arms? The meaning of right to bear arms is not only have yourself a gun, but you should be able. In the term and definition, you should be able to have a tank, and you should be able to shoot whatever you have out of that tank. You should be able to have what the military has. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying we should all have nukes, but at the same time, you know, we as American citizens have the right to defend ourselves over a tyrannical government. And that's, you know, as a Proud Boy, that's one of the things we believe in. We believe in minimal government. Because the moment the government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, the bigger it gets, the more tyrannical it gets, the more regulations get put on people, the more it suppresses people.
Well, the Second Amendment causes tyrants to come down with a severe case of morality. And, you know, that's what keeps them in check. And, you know, that word fascist, you know, again, I would love to talk about, like, the demonic nature of, like, when people show up and they start calling you names, and the demonic strategy of, you know, calling the other person the very thing that you're doing. But that word fascist is... Excuse me 1 second. What is it, honey?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Get out. Get out.
Get out of here.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
She had to pick up diapers.
No worries.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, that the etymology of that word fascist is when that was actually created by Mussolini. And what a fasci is a bundle of sticks. Right, it's where we get. It's literally where the English, you know, took that Latin word and they turned it into fagot. It's a burden or a bundle of sticks. And so what Mussolini was saying is like, hey, we're going to be fascists. That just means, you know, you can take a stick and you can break it, but if you put a bundle of sticks together, you know, you can't break it as easy. And so that word fascist, you know, translated to the modern day, literally means stronger together. And what was Hillary Rodham Clinton's campaign slogan? Stronger together. Stronger together, right? Fasci. And so, you know, these people, it's like, well, oh, you're a fascist. And it's like, oh, okay, well, what, you know. But here's the thing. Like, you could get into how comical, and there is, like, some brilliant comedy to be written in all of this. But you get past the comedy of it, and you realize, like, these people actually have no interest in you asking them, like, okay, well, what is a fascist? What does that mean? What does that word mean? And they won't. I had a guest on yesterday. I did the recording. It won't go out until later this week. But he was saying that, you know, he went on. There was that issue the other day or a couple weeks ago about that little black kid with the dreadlocks that was going to a private school, and the private school said, well, you can't have dreadlocks because that's not what we do here. It's not part of our uniform and whatever. And there was all these leftists that were, chiming in, and he just wrote it. And he's, he and I and a couple other guys, we all joined the Marine Corps together, so we're all kind of, and on top of that, like just a few years ago, all of us would have been considered bedwetting liberals. You know what I mean? Like our points of, you know what I mean? Like now we're far right conservatives. But he just gets on that thread and he says, well, but it's a private school. It's like telling IBM that they can't tell their employees to dress in blue. Or telling the Marine Corps they can't shave people's heads anymore. It's like, it's a private school. And everybody was like, you're a fascist, you're a racist, you're blah, 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 blah. And we were talking about that, and I just made the observation. I was like, Mike, the thing is, they can't hear you. They can't hear you. Like, there's nothing that you can say that they can hear because they're under that spell. You know what I mean? They're under that curse of like we are the right people. We're the virtuous people. And there's a very real element to the human experience where it's like you need to be virtuous as much as you need to eat food. There's a place in your heart that needs to experience virtue. And when you get outside of the confines of why it is you need to be virtuous, you still, you know what I mean? Like, these people are godless. Like, they don't have a reason to be virtuous. They don't have something that they are beholden to or responsible to be virtuous for, and yet they still have this hole in their heart where they have to be virtuous. I have to, hate white people for being white. Like, I can't imagine, like the end result of being, trying to feed that part of your soul that needs to be virtuous without the Almighty on the other end of it to be virtuous for. It results in people like we saw on that clip the other day, where this gigantic, big, fat, purple-haired white man was yelling at this other person saying, "Oh, you're a white man, aren't you?" Like this man lives in a world where he's literally ashamed of who he is as a human being. Like, I'm white and therefore I hate myself. Like, I can't imagine, like, if Dante was writing still, he would never be able to come up with that level of hell. Like, to walk around hating your own skin? Like, what? So, that's getting more into the metaphysical side of, what's truly happening. And I'm glad that you touched on that evil, but how do you guys discuss it? What is this? Because you're on the front line, so how do you guys conceptualize it? Like, what do you guys talk about? What do you?
Well, one of the things that one of the core tenets of being a Proud Boy is anti-racial guilt.
Yeah.
We don't believe in the whole white privilege conspiracy that everybody talks about. If anything, we're privileged just being American and American alone.
Yeah.
I want to read you off some core tenets of ours and see,
Please
so
do.
You guys can get a quick little idea of what we're about. One, we're minimum government. That's it. As minimal as you can be. Maximum freedom. You get that with a minimal government. We're anti-political correctness. I don't care what you say, how you say it. You know what I mean? If it's offensive, you still have your right to say it, Doesn't matter how offensive, you still have the right to say it. Now, the outcome of the other individual you're being offensive to, if he doesn't like that about you, you might have a problem. But you still are not, you're not allowed to impose violence. You're not allowed to harm anybody's property, or you're not allowed to own anybody's self-being, which is your own property. So, for instance, if I want to go hurt myself, I want to go take a dirt bike and go hit, a 50-foot jump and endo over and then hurt myself, that's my own doing. I did that on myself, you know what I mean? But I'm not going to go take my dirt bike and go hurl it into somebody's house because now I'm destroying somebody else's property. You know what I mean? Anyways, we're anti-drug war. That was a big thing with us,
the drug war in Canada this week, the drugs won the drug war. Marijuana got legalized.
Oh, yeah.
The drugs won the drug war.
Well, to me, that's definitely. I don't think that's a drug war.
I don't either.
You know,
I don't either.
like, it's to me, it's funny because it's like, I've gotten in many arguments about, because we're a drinking club. That's one of the things. And I always make this the connection. I'm like, well, you gotta always remember. What is it? Genesis 21. All seed-bearing plants are free for mankind.
To
you know
use,
what I mean?
yeah.
And so what's funny about that to me is it's like, well, God made weed and man made beer. Which one can you truly trust, and which one do you have to fear? I always say that because to me it's just comical. But I mean, as to be freedom, you should be allowed to do whatever you want. As long as you're not harming anybody else and you're not taking from anybody, you should be okay. So if you have a full-time job and you want to smoke crack and you're okay, society, I mean, that's your business. I don't appreciate it, but that's not my thing. But
You can't be around my kids, but yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, if that's what you want to do, cool, man. Another thing we're about closed borders. To be in the greatest nation of the world, you have to come here legally. If you want to be in this max amount of capitalism, you should have to do the right thing to get here. You know what I mean? There's laws. You know what I mean? I'm a libertarian, and that's my own personal philosophy. Proud Boys are very conservative. But you have a lot of people that swing a little bit more left, a little bit more right. That's just how we are. Me as a libertarian, I don't believe in open borders like some people do. I believe that if you want to be here, man, you have to pay your dues. You know what I mean? And when you pay your dues, though, the benefit of that is far more greater than wherever you came from.
Yeah.
Like I said before, we're anti-racial guilt. You should be proud of who you are. You can look at me, you can just call me a white boy, but you never guess I'm quarter Mexican.
I would not have guessed that, no.
Yeah, I know. And what's funny about that is like I get called racist and everything else, but I only know a few of my white family. I got a lot of Mexican family that I know, you know what I mean? But no one cares about that. They just want to judge you for the color of your skin, which is racist, by the way.
That is racist. Yeah, that's the very definition of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anti-racism. We don't believe that. We don't believe in being racist. We have some guys that, for instance, not too long ago, we had a guy that was in our group. He had a couple red flags, but all of a sudden he started talking about, well, we need to be a white ethno-state and all this other crap. Got you voted right away.
Yeah.
We don't play that game. We're not about this like keep America white. We're not about that. No, we're about anybody and everybody is allowed to be in here. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, your religion, or whatever. We're pro free speech. We believe in you should be able to say what you say and whatever you want to say. I might not agree with it, but you have the right for you to say it,
right,
no matter what it is. Just the same as ideologies. If you want to be radical communist, go right ahead. You have every right to be. But what you don't have the right to do is you don't have the right to harm somebody's person or property just because they have a different ideal as you. To me, that's insane. We're definitely pro-gun. We are very pro-gun.
Me too.
I've been shooting since I was 4.
Right.
My dad's a competition shooter.
Oh.
My grandfather, he was a head detective of the San Antonio Police Department. He graduated from the FBI Academy back in 55, 56. My great-grandfather was a Texas Ranger.
Wow.
Both my grandfather and great-grandfather in the state of Texas served Secret Service for Kennedy and Nixon. My great-grandfather, he got into a fight with the head director of the FBI 2 days before Kennedy was assassinated. Was telling him he needs a dome over his Cadillac. That's the type. My family's very rooted with American history, all the way back. The Williamson side goes all the way back to Constitution. We believe in glorifying the entrepreneur.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's a big thing of ours. Why don't you become your own boss? There's nothing wrong with that. I think people especially millennials nowadays, and I'm not going to say, there's some Gen X out there that are kind of on that teetering side, but man, millennials are scared to go anything outside of the box. On top of that, though, millennials, for God's sakes, they want to do the least amount of work and get paid the maximum amount.
Yeah.
That's just stupid.
There's some good ones in there. Like I try to champion the cause of, there's a young man whose name is David Hogg, who got a great deal of grief because of his name, and he just gets on on Twitter, and he just gets back on Twitter. He's like, dude, I'm just a different David Hogg guy, and I'm conservative, and I'm a Christian, and I love my mom and dad, and like he's just a 16-year-old kid. There's C.J. Pearson, 16-year-old kid, black kid who, like you said, like has the most horrendous things said to him. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, he's just a kid. And like there's one thing I'm gonna put this in there is that one thing that this kind of demonic activity creates, just like in Germany in the late 30s, is that it creates your Dietrich Bonhoeffers. You know what I mean? It creates it create in these times. It creates your David Hoggs and C.J. Pearsons. It creates a hardier people that are going to take a stand and be like, no, I don't believe what you're saying. I believe, I don't know why, because I'm only 16 years old, but I don't think, you don't look like you're telling the truth. So I don't believe you. You know what I mean? And you're going to the reason I want to take this time to say this is like, yeah, I'm with you. Like every time I meet a millennial, I'm like, I don't know. But but we have to be very careful with that and make sure that when it comes to those kind of kids, that we are there to support them and be like, no, like the American dream, it's still there. Like you can still have as much as you want, work as hard as you want, create as much stuff as you can. We have no idea what you're capable of creating, and we just need to create that environment and preserve that environment for you to be creative and hardworking and family oriented and like all that stuff. So I'm sorry, I just had to get that get that.
Yeah, no, I understand completely. No, man, like I'm a millennial myself, but I find myself a different breed than amongst the rest of the folk I'm around that are my age, because I was taught as a kid that you're only as valuable as your skills and labor.
Right.
Right. That's it, man. My dad has been putting me to work since I was, 6 years old, 7 years old. For God's sakes, I was cutting tile, laying tile, stripping tile by the time I was 8 by myself.
Dang.
My dad put me to work, man.
Right.
He taught me how to raise a good dollar. He used to pay me $2 a tile, right? And mind you, and I do, I'd work with him at night doing it and stuff like that. And then before you know it, I went from doing, maybe 5, 10 tiles a night, $2, $20. That's not too bad. All of a sudden, man, I was doing 100+ tiles a night. My dad told me, okay, we're going to have to...
All right.
You're wiping me out of some cash here, son. But that's the thing. It taught me hard work as a kid.
Yeah.
And teaching your kids, I think that's where parents have our problem. It's this helicopter parenting, and on top of helicopter parenting, it's the not teaching them responsibility.
Right.
My mom, when I was a kid, she did everything she could the best for me. You know what I mean? And I always fought her with it. But my dad figured out a way to not only, for instance, when I got punished by my dad, he would go make me dig a hole. One time he made me dig a trench 18 inches deep around his whole house and then fill it back in. You know what I mean? And then redo it. He used to put me in a corner with a circle in the corner, put my nose in, and I had to sit there as long as I could. And if my heels hit the ground or whatever, man, I had 5 more minutes. Just stuff like that, you know what I mean?
That's that old...
My dad always put me to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad always put me to work. And he taught me that, you're not going to get anywhere in life just being lazy,
right,
being around. Don't get me wrong, man. I was a screw up as a kid.
Sure.
I was a big screw up, man. I up until a few years ago, I was still a big screw up. It took a lot, but I have to say, like, you wake up one day and you realize you don't want to be in where you're at, and so you have to realize you have to see where you're at, and you have to go, okay, I want more from my life. I want better.
Yeah.
I'm only 28 years old, but I'm a high school dropout. First thing I started doing as a high school dropout, I was working at a grocery store, and then from working at a grocery store, I was like, I don't want to do this no more. So what happens? I got a job working labor, getting prevailing wage at 18 years old, working on the 29 Palms Marine Base.
No, that's where I was stationed at. That's where I was stationed.
I lived in 29 Palms for 3 years.
Oh, that sucks. Sorry to hear that.
I know, tell me about it. It is a hole. I went to school there. That's actually the school I dropped out of.
Oh.
But you know what, man? I mean, getting paid 18 years old, getting paid $37.50 an hour, working 60 hours
That's
plus
good.
a week.
That's good dough.
You're like, oh man, I'm on the top of the world, And then Barack Obama sat there and did the government spending budget, and he cut it, and all of a sudden I was out of a job, and so happening, I moved back up here to Washington State, and I've done so many different types of jobs, but all the different types of jobs I've done is increased my skill, increased my labor, increased everything on me to be where I'm at right now. And I think kids need to really, honestly, if I could give any millennial any type of advice, is get out of high school, go work. Don't go to college right away. Go see what you actually want to be, because let me tell you something, man. You have these kids that go straight from high school straight to college, and then they go get some type of weird degree on gender studies, or they get some type of degree on something that they thought they want to do, but then they get out and then they realize, oh, I'm just a waiter. I'm sitting at home still with my parents. Stuff like that happens all the time, and I think that the one thing that we can actually kind of impose on kids is why don't you go get a skilled labor, go to a trade school. Go learn something other than just going to college straight out of the bat.
You think about the fact that not only the arts have been taken out of school, guitar class and those sorts of things, but metal shop and wood shop and all those things, those aren't in school anymore, and so you don't have when I get my family back to the United States, when my boys reach 13, 14 years old, it's going to be okay, this is where we're going to start trade school. And by the time you turn 18, you're going to be already registered with your local whatever union, electricians or iron workers or whatever. It's because you're if you want to go to college, God bless you, but you're going to pay for it. I'm not going to. You know what I mean? You're going to know how to work. You take guys from your neck of the woods, or from upstate New York and Michigan and Minnesota, the backwoods people. All of those people can fix your heater and refrigeration unit. All of those people can switch out your radiator. There's, what I mean? It's oh shit, I'm out of a job. Now what do? I don't know. I guess I'll go fix, I'll drive down to Phoenix and fix air conditioning units for the summer. You know what I mean? It's I'm impervious to poverty, because it's I can do a lot of stuff, and that's when you take a look at the grand scheme of things. It's why did they take metal shop and automotive shop out of school, along with how to play a guitar, or how to play the recorder or whatever? It's they took all that stuff because it's we don't want you to be useful. You know what I mean? We want you to be idiots. We don't want you to be useful idiots. You know what I mean?
That's the problem about school, man. They're not teaching you. They're teaching you what to think, and they're not teaching you how to think.
Right.
And I think that's a major role. Me, for instance, I'm from a little town in Washington State. That's where I'm from, And I had metal shop, I had wood shop, I had automotive class, and of course, those are what I like to do. Ironically enough, later on in my life, here I am now, I'm a metal fabricator.
There you go.
I can TIG weld, I can MIG weld, I can stick weld, I can do production welding, I can also do custom welding. I mean, I built so many cool things in my life, and it's cool because I'm allowed to take my mind, what I imagine, and then put it towards my work. I think a lot of, call it what you will, but that's arts in my opinion. You know what I mean?
It is the arts, absolutely.
And I think people tend to think that that's not art, but that is art, man. Being able to take whatever you imagine. For instance, I love to build camping stoves, collapsible camping stoves. I like building random little things. I love working on cars. I love putting in roll cages, mini tubs. I love fabricating, new motor mount housing positions. I love doing, framework and stuff like that. Honestly, side work, you get paid good money doing that. When you just get paid your hourly wage, you get an hourly wage. When you can actually quote somebody on a good job, man, I mean, you can quote them, you can make really good money on.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, everybody always needs something done.
Exactly, man. My whole thing is right now, I'm trying to get my own business going. I'm trying to set up, to where later on in my life, my family, my whole goal later on in my life is I want to be able to work from home. I want to be able to be with my family. I want a big shop at my house. I want to work at home. I like to be just my own employee. That'd be nice. My own boss, my own employee, and that's it. Be with the kids as much. I don't want millions of dollars. I just want to live comfortably and live happy.
Hell yeah. Get married.
And don't get me wrong. I probably, it could come down to the point where like I could make, 100,000 one year, want 250,000 the next year, want 500,000 the next
It's
year.
not that much. Yeah.
And who knows?
That's not at all too much to ask. Just to kind of get back to the one thing that I worry about is, well, not worry about, but I can kind of foresee happening because as we can see in the progression of events is that this thing with Antifa and people who like to pray is scaling. It's getting bigger and bigger, and now we're starting to see that this evil has made it all the way to the mayor's office. It's made it all the way into the Senate of California and other states. We've seen now that that even the highest ranking officials of the CIA and the FBI are people who desire to undermine the security, peace, and prosperity of the United States, and it's just. It hasn't gone the other direction. The tide has not broken and receded yet. And so, given that information, it's on a projection. If we're going to predict the future, we're going to have to say it's like, well, given what we know, this is going to get worse, unless all of a sudden we wake up tomorrow and for some reason it's better. But given that, for my listeners, the point of my show is to keep people in community, to keep people abreast of what's actually happening, and do you guys have an infrastructure if you do need representation by attorneys should somebody end up having to protect their own life or the life of their children and wife and families? Do you have funds set up where people can put money into a fund in the event that somebody like that old man who was downtown Portland the other day, if that guy had a gun and he pulled it out and shot that other guy who was attacking his vehicle, he would need a lawyer and preferably not a public defender. Do you have infrastructure like that? Do you have things in place where things like that can be dealt with, and information that I can put out there for my listeners, where it's like, hey, if you want to give $1 a month or whatever, to this particular fund, do you have anything like that?
So we're not that big.
Okay.
Media makes it seem like don't get me wrong, we have chapters international.
Right.
I think this past March we got our first chapter in Israel.
Wow.
We got chapters on. They call us Nazis, right? But here we got a chapter for Israel, and all of them are part of the Israeli army, I guess, from what I've read up and everything. But honestly, we pay for everything out of pocket for ourselves. We do get backing for conservative lawyers. We do get backing from free, lawyers that are pro First Amendment and stuff like that. I don't know if you heard what happened in New York City.
Yes.
But I'm guessing, they're trying to make those guys, the New York City 9, they're trying to make those guys seem like they're the ones jumping these Antifa kids, but the video evidence clearly shows that they're the ones. The Antifa started it. They're the ones throwing bottles at them. Yeah, they got their ass kicked, but guess what? They ran into. They're the one that caused the problem. You know what I mean? And, it's pretty insane. They do, we do have lawyers around the U.S. that will help us, but honestly, dude, we pay for everything out of pocket. Our tires get slashed, our house property gets vandalized. They come after your job, man.
Right.
They'll sit there. They will have people left and right calling your job, saying that you have a Nazi working for you and blah blah, and harassing your employee until they actually get rid of you. You know, I mean, then what happens? Well, if they vandalize your house, you don't have a job, you can't pay for anything. They're trying to break you down. You know, you want to talk about evil they do. That's the crap they do. The cowardness. You know, that's the crap that we deal with on a regular basis. So
I didn't know that.
You know, you have. I mean, I've been doxxed. Everybody that in the Pacific Northwest, if you are a 3rd degree or higher, you have most likely been doxxed. I mean, that's, you know, what do they do with the doxing? You know, they put your information all over the internet so everybody knows where you live, everybody knows your phone, everybody knows your Facebook account, everybody knows everything. You know, I get death threats on the random all the time. You know, I've had multiple buddies that have got their tires slashed. I have had a buddy that's got his brake lines cut. I've had multiple buddies that have been fired from their jobs. You know, one of my buddies got fired from Boeing recently because they actually did a whole protest, man. A whole protest outside of one of the Boeing plants, actually outside the Air Museum. But yeah, you know, they have all this stuff. And you know what? We're not scared. We don't care. You know, we are still going to keep on fighting the good fight. And, you know, whether it's peaceful or violent, that's upon them. You know, all we're doing is protecting our own and protecting people. You know, just, you know, you could be a leftist, communist, you know, having freedom of speech and being pro-speech. But if we see somebody attacking you, you know, we can help you out. You know, I mean, ask for the help. We can help you out. I mean, you know, it's like that one guy. I don't know if you saw in Portland a couple weekends ago, but there was a big brawl in Portland. You know, it was the march against Ted Wheeler and all those BS. And it was a march against those Antifa that were in those sharps that were that old man. They were beating up. You know, they're attacking that old man. They were hitting cars. They're blocking traffic. It was a march against that. And, you know, you have one of my boys, you know, somebody got cracked upside the head, one of those dudes, and he's bleeding, he's screaming. I mean, he had pure, unadulterated fear in him. He was fearing for God at that moment in time. You could tell in his scream. He went through shock. And one of my boys that I know very well runs up to him, and he saves him. He helps him. Make sure nobody hits him. He gave him that compassion. He gave them that right of, okay, you've had enough. Okay, you obviously have learned your lesson, you know.
Right.
Will Antifa do that for one of us? Hell no. They won't do that for one of us. There's no compassion. I mean, for God's sakes, I got swiped across the face with a metal baton, knocked out for 30 plus seconds. I had a goiter on the side of my face. Wow. Man. That was humongous, you know. Thank God I didn't break my jaw. I still don't have a glass jaw. But still, man, like, you got to think about it. Like, they don't care. They would, you know, if my boys weren't there to pick me up, they probably would have stopped me.
Right.
That's, you know, they have no problem kicking you while you're down. They have no problem hurting.
Well,
you know, when you see, you want to talk about evil. The evil in life is when you start attacking and hurting the innocent.
Yeah.
People that don't deserve it. You know, when you feel like you think you're a strong man because you can come up to a woman and tell that woman. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe in equal rights, but I also believe in respect, and I believe in biology. And biology shows that men are just, in general, stronger than women. Yeah, are there women out there that are stronger than men? Hell yeah, there are. But as a general, men are quite stronger than women. If you think
taller, wider, and stronger. Yeah, muscle density, the whole thing.
If you think you're a badass and you think you can talk crap to a woman, and then when, you know, one of us comes up to you and we get in the middle between that woman and that person, oh, well, then that person backs down. They cower away. They run away. They do, you know what I mean?
Like that kid in New York the other day, This is the thing is that, like, you know, people, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but, like, people think of, like, demons or demonic activities like being some sort of, like, super ethereal, like, spooky, like, hobgoblins and whatever. It's like, no. Demons are they're merchants of weakness. Like that's the only thing they have to offer is weakness and attacking people, like old people in wheelchairs and, you know, men ganging up on women and that sort of thing. And this is this is why when I look at Antifa, it's like, well, you guys are just a bunch of weak demons. Like that's what you are, because you're out there yelling and screaming and calling people fascists because you know that we won't attack you. You know, and even, you know, and then the only time that you attack somebody is like when, you know, when you're surrounded by your friends and you've got somebody singled out. Like Rufio. you know, like that when we saw that glorious, by the way, Rufio's your friend, right? You know that guy?
Yeah, that's my boy, yeah.
Tell him I am ultra envious that he got that dream shot and that somebody had the presence of mind to, you know, record it. But, you know, it's you go back to that footage and it's like, here's Rufio and he's been cut from the herd. He's been singled out. And, you know, here's this guy with a baton, so he has the tactical advantage. That's the only, you know what I mean? Like that, just the strategy, like how weak do you have to be to attack an unarmed man? You know, and I mean, thank God Rufio was wearing his, you know, his little soccer, you know, pads or whatever he had on his arms, but, you know, and then he starts that dude, and it's like, that's like, that was such just a visceral moment for everybody, because it's like this is like, you know, dear Antifa, like this is what's in your future. Like you keep poking us, and you know, like we keep saying, okay, if you push me just a little bit further, if you push me just a little bit further, and it's like, hey Antifa, like our heels are very close to the edge, and like, oh boy, you're gonna get it. Like if you push, you know, like if you continue on this course, and if the police, and this is where it gets really like, you know, like the manifestation of like the spiritual nature of what's actually happening here is like, this has gone all the way to where the police of Portland, and you know, I love cops, you know, I love the concept of like, you know, you have a gun and you have a badge and we need to have you bear that responsibility, like we need that. But the moment you shirk your duties, then you are, according to our laws, putting that responsibility on me. And for the police to, you know what I mean, for the police to stand back and to let Antifa, you know, guide traffic and harass people, it's like, oh boy, Portland cops, like you're gonna need to choose sides internally. You know, you're gonna have to either choose to honor the oath that you took, or that you need to take your badge off and go stand with your brothers in Antifa. Because if this keeps up, it's like you're going to have what it is that the mayor of Portland is asking for, and that is, you know, civil violence, the kind of civil violence that leads to martial law and leads to the National Guard being called in and that sort of thing. And it's like, it's going to be a whole new nation when that happens. It's going to be a very different. Oh yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm mixed on that. It's like I kind of hope for that, in the sense that it would settle a lot of arguments, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that would be damaging to the fabric of our nation for a very long time if that were to happen. You know.
Yeah, well, you know, with the whole martial law and all that happening, I mean, martial law is a communist dream.
Yeah, you know? That's why they're doing it. That's what I'm saying. Like that's their end goal, is to have, if they can show like, oh, look at these conservative people, man. Like these conservatives are just attacking these sweet purple-haired, skinny Antifa people who are just using their First Amendment right to bash people's cars with, you know, batons. We need to have martial law. It's like communist dream, you know, dream come true.
It really is. But I think the biggest problem with that, if that were to ever happen, I think there'd be I think the people on both sides, honestly, would actually realize, the people that are in Antifa, because you know what, man, most of them aren't radicals. You know, there's a few, you know, it's weird because you go out there and it's not like everybody Antifa. You go out there and there could be 1,000 of them, right? Just standing there screaming at you, yelling at you. But physically, out of 1,000, there's maybe, I don't know, 50, 100 that actually kind of want to hurt you.
Okay.
And there's maybe about 25 out of them that actually come up and they actually they start it, you know, and maybe they'll have some followers behind them. But honestly, man, like, I think if it gets that bad, then I'm pretty sure that it's just, without a doubt in my mind, the people will actually realize what the Second Amendment's truly about. And it's the right to bear arms over a tyrannical government. It's the right for the people to say, nope, we have had enough of this and it won't happen. Yeah. And you know, honestly, if the military goes in and they have the National Guard go in, I'm quite sure, National Guardsmen will realize how dumb this is. And then in the military, you have a right to refuse order.
Yeah.
If you know it's bad,
right.
You have a right to refuse that order. Don't get me wrong, man. There's going to be a lot of guys out there that will take that order and they're going, sir, yes, sir. But you know what? I think there's too many damn free thinking Americans in the military and out of the military that will say, no, screw that. I'm going to do what's right. And that's the thing. When people start talking about martial law, and I love Alex Jones. You know what I mean? I listen to Alex Jones, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I know a lot of his stuff is rhetoric, and it does do some stuff to kind of makes you, his rhetoric though makes you think, like, the evil that is in people, they're still good. I think some of the most evil people, there's still some type of good inside of them, and they can't be saved, whether it's through religion or some type of spiritual force that can come into somebody. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. Those are still human souls.
Look at Wild Bill Hickok, man. You know what I mean? Guy killed quite a few people, but still he did good in his life. You know what I mean? He was a sheriff, for God's sakes, and he literally felt guilty about all the BS he did. You know what I mean? I still think in evil men, there's still good inside them, and people can be changed. Just so I think a lot of these young kids that hear the word of communism and they think, I'm standing up for good things. I'm hurting fascists. Let's bash a fascist. Let's punch a Nazi and everything else. I guarantee you, most of these people, when they hit 40 years old, they're going to see how retarded they were. Yeah. They're going to see how dumb and how juvenile they were. And they're going to realize they were in the wrong. Like me, I don't care if you're a Christian, atheist, a Buddhist, a Muslim. I think most people know the difference between right and wrong. Yeah. Not all people, but most people. And I feel, especially with America, I think America's changing. I think a lot of people are seeing these centralized locations where the left is harboring all their views and ideas, and they're trying to spit it out to the world. But I think people around those cities, around those areas, are realizing, no, I'm not about that. I might be liberal, but I'm not about hurting people. You know what I mean? I think the definition of liberal is becoming back to it's starting to kind of change, not all fully, but it's kind of starting to change where people are actually starting to realize the concept of what a classical liberal is, right? And I think with movies like Death of a Nation, Dinesh D'Souza coming out, I think people seeing that and realizing that the Democratic Party is just a bunch of, let's just face it, man. They're a bunch of wolves in sheep's clothing.
Boy, they can't seem to help themselves from losing. It's bizarre. It's like the whole Elizabeth Warren thing. It's like how are you? When liberals come in defense of Elizabeth Warren, it's like what kind of person are you? Like the whole nation sees what's really going on here, but somehow you don't, and you get to be on TV. Like, this is weird. Like, how do you not? That one black lady was on CNN the other day going, the Cherokee Nation are a bunch of racists for not having Elizabeth Warren's back. It's like, you just called the Cherokee Nation a bunch of racists. Like, did you hear what you just said with your face? Like,
oh yeah.
It's like
but it shows. It honestly shows. They're trying to pull everything. They're trying to go all the way out of left field, trying to defend themselves, and it's not working. And the American people see that. Yeah. That's something to me that they keep on running with this BS. They keep on running with it, but in all honesty, people are actually seeing through it now. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. There's still people that are going to be hardcore supporters of it. Just like there's people on the far left that are hardcore supporters and people on the far right that are hardcore supporters. But in the end, most people are pretty dang centralized. Right. And
I hope so.
What's that?
I said I hope so. From your lips to God's ears, I hope so.
No, you know what? I'm very optimistic about people in general. I mean, don't get me wrong. Let's face it, communists. Let's look at Mao. Let's look at Stalin. Let's look at what a true Nazi is, which is a National Socialist. Let's look at them. Right. Let's look at the genocide of Jews. Let's look at the genocides of people with developmental disabilities. Let's look at the genocide of their own people. For instance, Stalin, he put a third of his nation inside prison. Mao killed over 70 million of his own people. For God's sakes, there was such a dictatorship. They wanted more men than women in China, and guess what? Now, I think I read this.
Now they have it. Yeah,
it's like 1 woman to 30 men in China.
Yeah, that's
disgusting.
Yeah, so in 40 years, it's like they're going to have a very real population problem, and you know, and that's, you know, you talk about, you know, exterminating a race. It's like, congratulations, China. Like, you know, here in just a couple of decades, it's going to be shown, like, you in your own weird virtuous world, like you exterminated your own people, you know.
Yeah.
But I will say this for the socialists. I had this revelation like 2 days ago. Really blew me away. Really got me thinking, like, oh, maybe I have it all wrong on, you know, being against socialism. In Venezuela right now, the people are they're eating pigeons. So I'm thinking, like, you know, if socialism came to America, like, we've got a lot of pigeons in America. You know, I think one could do quite well for himself, you know.
You know what, man? This has to go back to my whole. Well, first off, I guarantee you, if anything like that happened, most of the population, especially in America, will die. I mean, you can't. I mean, I'm a hunter, so when it comes to, like,
you'll be okay.
I love squirrel. I grew up as a kid hunting whitetail in Georgia and hunting squirrel and boar and everything else, you know, wild pig and whatnot. And I mean, I have had liberal friends and, like, you know, friends that aren't used to that whole scenario. Like, oh yeah, I'm like, you want to eat a squirrel? I'll shoot a squirrel right in my yard, skin it right then and there, put it on the grill. 10 minutes later, you know, fresh as can be. They look at you and they have this weird green look to them, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do it. But I'm like, it's good. You know, it's food. It's food.
It's meat.
It's meat,
yeah.
No matter how you eat it. You know, I mean, if it's made out of meat, you can eat it. You know
what I
mean?
Yeah.
But so I'm quite sure what will happen is, and by the way, you know, only if I think pre-1950, 2/3 of America has shot a firearm and was pretty adequate with a firearm, and as of right now, less than 1/3 of America has shot a firearm and maybe knows just a little bit about a firearm. But when it comes down to it, I mean, I'm pretty sure people will just die out.
Yeah.
If anything like that will happen.
And it's a horrible, it's a horrible, that's the thing, is that, like, these socialists, like, I don't think you understand, like, this whole starvation thing. It is literally the worst as far as, like, how long it takes. Like, your body won't die from starvation until the very last second. Like, you can die from being tortured. You can die, you know what I mean? Like, immediately. Like, you can die, like, all these. You can die from depression. Like, your body will literally prefer to live longer and start, like, it'll just keep eating itself until there's just nothing left to eat. Like, it's the worst way to die. And it's like, you know, to your point, and I've said this before, it's like, you know, these people, it's like, I don't think you understand what you're up against. Like, you people don't know firearms. Right? Like, you know what a trigger is, and you know what the hot end of a rifle is, but it's like, you can't put it in the black from 300 out on a consistent basis. Like, there's
no, that MOA would be indefinite.
You know what I mean? It's like, dude, there's over 20 million of us, like, people that either served or their daddy served and taught him, and, you know, whatever. It's like, I don't think you understand what you're up against, and it's why we're not in danger of Hillary Clinton unleashing the United States military on us. It's because it's like, even the Marines and soldiers and airmen and seamen, like, those people understand. It's like, oh, if you come fight your brothers, like, you know, like, one, you're going to be, you know, a traitor to your nation, but number two, you're going to have a fight on your hands the entire time, and one of us is going to go, you know, and that's, you know, that's one thing that baffles me, is that it's like just the logistical miscalculation on the part of the left. It's like, I don't, you know, the Emperor of Japan said, or whoever, you know, back in the day, he said, we're never going to invade the mainland of America, because behind every blade of grass is a rifle. You know, like, we're not going to go over there.
Yeah.
And
think about it this way: with 2.5 million Citizens of China serve for the military, and there's over 70 million Americans that own firearms.
Yeah.
You know, actually are adequate with firearms. I
Right.
mean, there's a reason why Japanese invaded Alaska and didn't get too far past the beach. And then before you know it, we had our own concentration camps. Like here in Washington, I live right next to Puyallup. And, you know, Puyallup Fairgrounds, a lot of people don't know this, that was a concentration camp for the Japanese.
Ew.
Before it was an actual fairgrounds, you know.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I've been out there. I know that area. It's real pretty out there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I live in Western Washington. I live near Puyallup, man, and South Sound chapter, Pierce and Thurston counties, man. That's I love Washington. I've been to Georgia. I lived in Georgia, North Carolina, a little bit in Texas. Lived in California. 29 Palms. I also live near Bellflower, which is right next to Compton. So I lived in a lot of different areas. In Washington State on the western side,
beautiful.
By far the most beautiful area I've ever been in.
Yeah.
It's majestic. There's a lot of mysterious. There's a lot of mystery when it comes to the woods. You don't know what you're gonna run against. You can walk into a herd of elk. You can walk into a couple of bears. Heck, you can have a cougar tracking you for a couple miles.
Yeah.
You don't even know it.
I hiked the a pretty good section of the Pacific Crest Trail there, just outside of Snohomish, right? Yeah. Real pretty up there,
Yeah.
and the largest waterfall, the second largest waterfall in America is right there, and that's God's country out there. And there's when you talk about all the elk and cougar and just trees, solid trees and berries and everything, it's like if you want to like fully come into the understanding that like God is with you and everything in the universe is actually like a great cosmic conspiracy to keep you alive and keep you going. It's like you go out there and there's just food everywhere, and water that comes right out of the ground, and you can drink, stick your face in it and just drink it, and what I'm saying? Like that's real pretty out there. Well, listen, it's Williamson, right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Williamson, thank you so much for your good work, and my show is open to you. Like if you need to get out any sort of announcements, if you just want to come on the show and just shoot the shit and let us know what's going on, anything that you need to get any sort of word and message out, my platform belongs to you, my friend. Thank you for that. And listen, fear not, neither be afraid.
Hey, I'll tell you what. This is my first podcast ever done.
What?
I've been interviewed by like the Seattle Times, a lot of different newspapers and stuff like that. But they never get your information right. They always skew it and everything else. And my girl Nellie, when she wrote you and she told me that you wanted to talk to me, I was like, this is a good platform. I'd be happy to actually just talk with,
Yeah.
Didn't really show prep, didn't know nothing. I kind of just went on the end there. I got a few notes that I wrote down of our core tenets and everything else. But other than that, I figured, just put it in your hands and let's just talk.
When I ask people on the show, they're always like, well, what are the questions going to be? And it's like, I don't know. We're just going to shoot the shit, man.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
It's good. I actually, I don't know if you ever heard of Jason Stapleton, but
I've heard the name.
Mentioned us to Proud Boys.
I've heard the name.
He's a hardcore libertarian, free market guy, hardcore capitalist. I wrote to him, just saying, hey, dude, if you got any information, shoot me a message, and now he wants me on his show,
Sweet.
So it's crazy, like you were saying the other day about how God does things for us, and we all have a purpose in this life.
Right.
I think it's men who stare at goats. Don't get me wrong. Not George Clooney, his ideas and political views, I don't like too much. But in that movie, he always stated, it states that he's like, Gandhi wanted to be like a doctor, but guess what? He didn't. And he still wanted to changing the lives of others. Anne Frank wanted to be a school teacher, but she didn't. But she still had a destiny, and you still have to change the minds and lives of others. And I think wherever this is taking me, wherever God wants to show me, this is it, man. You know, I didn't join this group because I want to go fight people. You know, I joined this group because I saw a bunch of guys that love one another, that have compassion for another human being, that do not like seeing other people hurt, but at the same time are pro-American, pro-patriotism. And I guess I'll end it with this. I'm a Western chauvinist who refuses to apologize for creating the modern world. And if you don't know what a Western chauvinist is, it's not a male chauvinist or anything else. If you don't understand the definition of chauvinism, it means highly patriotic. Extremely patriotic.
Say that one more time. Say the because I heard Gavin McGinnis say that, but say that saying one more time.
I am a Western chauvinist who refuses to apologize for creating the modern world.
Amen.
Yeah, and people don't think, if you want to know what chauvinism means, it just pretty much means the best. And just in a nutshell, it means the best. And what is one thing that every Proud Boy believes in? The West is the best.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what country you're in, doesn't matter where you're at in this world. If you respect and value Western culture and Western values, you're going to make it further than any other culture, any other society has ever made.
By a country mile. By a country mile.
What's that?
By a country mile. By a long shot. They're like, it's not even close. So how long have you and your producer, your girlfriend, the girl who's responsible for producing the show, how long have you all been together?
We've actually been together for almost 6 months now.
Oh yeah?
And honestly, and what's crazy is believe it or not, man, I fell in love from the moment I met her.
Here's what you do.
Yeah.
Here's what you do.
What's that?
I said, here's what you do. You get married, and you make human beings with your ding-dong. That's what you got to do, man.
Hey, you know what? I 110% agree with you, my friend.
All right.
110%. One thing that we, as Proud Boys, we do preach a lot, and that is reigniting a spirit of Western culture and Western chauvinism. And, another thing, besides glorifying the entrepreneur, we believe in venerating the housewife. Now, don't get me wrong. If your woman wants to work and you want a dual income household, great, man. But, me, the way I see it, I would like my wife to not have to work, not have to deal with the burden. Let me deal with the burden of making money.
Yeah, ladies, it's a shitty shit fest. Why would you want to come into where we have to go and fight other men all day? It sucks. It's hard. Like,
hey, you know what? People hear that, they call you a misogynist for it, but I just want, one thing about being a Proud Boy, you put your woman on the highest pedestal.
Yeah.
Women are magical creatures, man. They
magical.
Produce a human being inside their womb. You know what I mean?
It's crazy, yeah.
What do we have to do? We lay a seed. What do they have to do? The rest of the work.
Their body, because my wife is literally about to give birth literally any second right now. That's
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Second one. But it's like it's weird because it's like they're remember the cartoon, the Transformers with the Autobots and the Decepticons. It's like when a woman gets pregnant, like her body transforms into a human being making machine, and then it turns back into what it normally was after the baby comes out. And it's capable of doing this up to 20 times, I think is the record. But it's like, and I made this point on the show that I did to sort of set up you coming on the show. I was like, look, like as a masculist or as a chauvinist or whatever it is that you want to call me, it's like I cannot properly adore and give adoration to my wife as the feminine component of my life, the much needed feminine component of my life that I need not only for companionship but for the perpetuation of my bloodline and my genetic material. It's like all that. I cannot properly honor that and adore that unless I am in full command and appreciation of my own masculinity. Like, you know what I mean? Like that. Like that's, and and I wouldn't want her to start acting like a dude. You know what I mean? Like, dudes are.
No, amen to that, man. We have roles. Whether I've already mentioned Brett Weinstein and everything else, or was it Weinstein or Weinstein? Either way, You know, him and his wife, they got on and they talk about biology, evolution, everything.
Yeah, on Joe Rogan. Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah. And one thing that really struck my mind is, and it's like, you know, creating a baby, man, it takes two to tango. You know what I mean? You know, a baby is nothing easy. It's hard. You know what I mean? Like, you need a companion to be there at all times to help you with raising that being, but at the same time, raising that little being part of your DNA, being part of you, that's what's going to, you know, you're going to create this life, and you're going to bring this life up to be better than yourself. And I think that's what people are missing. You want to make sure that little child, that little precious object of yours, creates itself to be something better than yourself. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people nowadays are kind of like. They're just like, oh, you know, that's my kid, blah blah blah. But that's it. You know, you know, with me and my relationship and everything else, you know, I have a feeling we're going to be just fine in this world.
I think you're going to be all right. Aaron Williamson, thank you so much. That's it, and we will look forward to the next time that you come on to the Arch Advocate podcast. God bless you, brother.
God bless you too. Amen to that.